As some of you know, I have an interest in eschatology. I've studied it. I've even written a book about it. But of course, no one really knows 100% until it happens. There's a reason why I'm saying this. Because many times when people ask me, what's going to happen to the United States? And I've given hints here and there. But the answer is, to be honest, I just don't know. But what I can do is understand the ways in which the U.S. can go. And that can let us understand what our destiny is, at least those who live in this country. You may wonder why am I being so cryptic about this, because I just don't quite know. But I can give you some educated guesses, depending upon what takes place. And for me, I think there are actually, of all the scenarios, there's two that comes up. And one is becoming very realistic as we go on. Now, I look at politics a lot, not so I can argue who's best. Is it the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? Is it Obama? Is it Trump? Be honest, all of these are just chess pieces. And do you know who's putting them into effect? God. Because after all is said and done, whatever takes place must come to pass in the way that God says it's going to come to pass. Now, if we look at prophecy, Ezekiel talks about Gog and Magog. And they're not two countries. I believe that Gog is the prince of Magog, which is to the north. And remember, everything in the Bible is relative to Israel. So, if it's to the north, it's not to the north of us, it's to the north of Israel. That's Russia. The Revelation talks about the kings of the east as they come forth to meet the other world forces in a place that is called by one of the most chilling names that we've come across. Not because of the name itself, but because of what it represents. Armageddon. Kings of the East, who are they? Remember, got to be a very powerful nation. Who's that nation? China. And as China grows in power, it becomes more and more evident that either China itself or some combination of China with other countries, such as India, which now has more people than China does. If you take those two countries, you have over 30% of the world's population in two countries. Close to 3 billion people just in those two countries. Then we talk about what makes up the beast, known as Antichrist. But it's not just representing a person, it's also representing an alliance of nations, of which the Antichrist will control. And as we go through the world today, we also begin to understand that the seeds of what we know is Antichrist will come from an area that used to rule over the world, or the known world. In fact, the time in which it was ruling was called the Pax Romana, meaning the Roman peace. And if we look at the place where the Roman Empire was most effective, of course, you have this home area in Italy. But Italy is now part of another confederation, along with Spain, France, Germany, and of the alliance called NATO, of which the United States is a part. And I'll get to that in a second. England is also part of NATO, and many of the other countries in Europe. And these have various foes, including Russia, including China, militarily at least. Now, what did I say when I said about getting back to NATO? It's because the events that have been happening this year has, I believe, forever changed, if not the makeup of NATO, the mindset of NATO. You see, when President Donald Trump began to talk against this alliance, even in some ways to go at it by itself, the U.S. is pulling back from its alliances with various nations to become the lone national alliance or international alliance. And part of that is it's threatening to pull back from NATO, which has been the one bulwark that has kept the Soviet Union, which is now Russia, and an alliance of its own states, from moving forward to envelop the rest of Europe. Finland joined NATO because of this threat. The reason why the Ukraine is fighting a war against Russia is because Ukraine does not trust Russia, and for good reason. But the United States, I'm not going to debate whether it's a smart move or a bad move. But if the United States pulls away from NATO and is by itself, we now have the actors that are about to participate in a major way in biblical prophecy. But the question that I have right now is, where does this leave the United States? That's a good question. And it should be a very sobering question. For this one fact, we have an identification of Russia, Gog and Magog. And once that takes place, we will not be able to stop it. We will only be an unwilling bystander. One way or another, biblical prophecy is going to come to pass. And the United States is not part of it. The only difference that I see is, are we conquered and cease to be as a nation, or are we an unwilling onlooker at the events that will take place? The more I see it, the more I feel it'll be number two. It doesn't make it better, but it becomes much more conceivable. Wish I could have better news, but there won't be a Christian nation until Jesus comes. That will be the only other way that we can survive. And that's not going to happen. God bless you. Just think about it. Not to be scared, not to frighten you, but to soberly think. Do we put our pledge totally upon our country, in good or bad? Or do we put our pledge on Jesus? Make your choice. May God bless you and may He keep you. Love you all, and may God take care of you.